fall, but I hope the community pulls together apropos to your comments and tries to solve the problem, because it is a problem here, not only here, but in other communities are also taking the same approach, reaching out and trying to pull in resources. But now's the time to start. We had a good discussion about some steps maybe we could take to make sure we have a successful and full handful of bus drivers for the coming year. So I appreciate the community support and outreach, and I know that the school district will be, proactively reaching out to try to make sure we have what we need there. I mean, those were I think the really key points. It was a great discussion. I'm excited about the coming year. Anything, Dan, that you want to add?
Yeah, that's it.
Can I ask a quick question? And I get, double routes and stuff have to happen and kids getting there late. We don't run into any potential issues with ROE and truancy with that, do we? Or is that something we need to be concerned about with?
No, but our number one goal is getting.
Yeah, I know it. I know that's the
School
goal,
on
but
time and-
sometimes that doesn't happen, and I was just wondering
Absolutely,
at what,
but again,
if that was something we need to be concerned about.
no, I appreciate you asking
Okay.
that question. And no, it does not, but
Okay,
that's something that has to continue to be a focus of ours.
Yeah.
Is when things do have to be double routed,
right,
how are we adjusting things or adjusting times to make sure we're getting kids here to school?
Right.
And I know that it is absolutely a frustration point and an inconvenience for everyone across the board.
Mhm.
And we appreciate the patience that everyone gives us with that, and know that that's our goal, is to get them here
Of course.
on time safely, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
On to last but not least, I'm going to provide a building committee report. Katie and I were on the building committee. We met about a week ago, and it was a pretty lengthy meeting. We had a lot to go over, so I'll try and make this as brief as we can, but I got a few things I want to make sure the board is aware of that's been going on. So we'll start with the construction projects. So they're in full swing. We've got a soccer field that has turf on it already, so which is really exciting. The only thing that came up about that was, though, there was an error that happened that slipped through the cracks, that the lines were black instead of white. As you know, with the way turf goes, colors they vary across districts all the time. And so the contractors and the architects put out shop drawings that have to be approved by the owner before they get manufactured. And so that little black line that was around the soccer field was not addressed, that it needed to be changed. And so it was something that happened. There will be an additional cost of $11,000, but just know that is being absorbed in the contingencies. On a $25 million project, we're going to have a few of those here and there. There's going to be some things that, ebb and flow. We've got a lot of things that we actually are able to save money on, and which are counterbalancing any of these things that we're expended money on. So just know that it's part of the project. It happens. The contractor is being great and is really being proactive in helping us fix that at a reasonable cost. So in my mind, to cut out all those black lines and put white lines in and reintegrate and re-sow that turf for $11,000 is actually a pretty good deal. So in my mind, the experience that I have says that we were getting a good deal on that. So we were able to tell Mr. Kaler and Suzanne to proceed with that. There has been a discussion about the scoreboards for the baseball and softball field. And it was brought up that, we need to continue to make sure that we're doing things that are equal for both boys and girls sports. And one thing that got brought up was that currently the softball scoreboard is smaller and doesn't have all the same information on it that the boys has. And that's been that way for years. And so our process in going forward is, just because it's done before doesn't mean we need to continue doing that. And just because we can do it, because replacing one for one, you could do that. We could go ahead and just replace them. But we felt like we wanted to be proactive. We wanted to make sure that we're prioritizing girls sports as much as we can with the boys sports. And so what we're going to do is we're going to spend some extra money there as well. It's about $24,000 additionally for additional structure and an additional size of the scoreboard to make them match. So, you know, those two scoreboards will match when they're all said and done. There are a few other items as they dug down under the old NPR. They put the science lab on. There's some unsuitable soils that have come up. You know, again, those are all part of the construction process. Once you start digging in the ground, apparently they found old parking lots, a bunch of sand, you know, all kinds of stuff that's been built up over the years. And, you know, so that's causing some additional costs, things that we knew and we had line items for in the budget. But just know that those are being taken care of. Let's see, we're going to be looking at furniture for the new construction project. And we've tasked the administrators, Dr. Kaler and Mrs. Keller, to look at bidding them out in various ways so that we can get competitive bidding for that and help make sure that we're getting the right quantity, the right quality that we're expecting with that, but yet also getting a competitive price. So they're going to go out and look and see a couple different avenues that we can bid that out in order to keep the costs down. Let's see what else we've got. There is some other building product, you know, there's other buildings in the district, right? So we have to make sure we are trying to keep up on those as well. There's a boiler in the 2-3 building that can no longer be repaired, so it needs to be replaced. The sewer piping that you mentioned in the EC1, that's slated to be fixed over the summer. And it's not something like last summer we were able to sleeve the existing one. This one, we're actually going to have to dig it up and replace it. So it'll be a little bit more extensive, but Brad's assured us that it'll get done over the summer. So, and then Dr. Shaw indicated some playground upgrades and some different things, phases and things that they're trying to implement to make sure that we can have ADA accessible playgrounds, better playgrounds, more up-to-date playgrounds, because all the playgrounds that we have throughout the district are starting to, you know, fall apart and can't be fixed because they don't meet the current codes. No one's willing to touch them if they don't meet the codes. So we're working through various phases. I believe there's 3 phases. We've gone through 1 phase. We're working in phase 2, and hopefully we can get some money for phase 3, right? Is that okay? Yes. So Dr. Shaw's our grant lady, and she's doing a great job of getting us as much money as we can to get those fixed. There is an HVAC unit that keeps leaking in the high school, so we're going to have that addressed and fixed, as well as still working with the bleachers in the rack. It's been an issue since they were installed. And so what we're doing now is Heavy and his crew are doing a great job to try and keep them either out or retracted as much as possible in order to, it's the in and out that makes it a problem. And so, you know, we leave them out as long as we can. We push them back and keep them back as long as we can. But it's getting to the point where they're having to have people come and, you know, help make sure that they're movable still. So what we've tasked Heavy with doing is trying to talk to the manufacturer and see if there's any other solutions that we can put out there. You know, that we can, I don't know, we're like, just throw every option out there. How do we fix this? It's been an issue for how many years now? Since it was installed.
The
And
number one answered by all the different bleacher contractors, and they've come from Washington State, all over, they've done stuff in Australia, is the Mondo floor. It's like riding a bike in sand, the wheel, it swishes down, and it constantly tracks. And John, our custodian over there, our RAC coordinator, he has to put down plywood before every game and have the wheels roll out, and some of them 82 sheet. I mean, that takes an hour and a half just to put those down, and you retract them, peel those up, so it's a nightmare really for him. But The
So-
thing keeps tracking, it'll move like 10 inches, and now it's fitting the trainer's wall just on the home side. And, they'll be here the 24th. It takes a while to get them back and forth, but they guarantee before they leave every night, they'll be retracted so that the track teams and softball, baseball can practice them. And that was the reason the Mondo was decided. So it could be a competitive gym, pull the bleachers out on the basketball floor, or you could retract them and you could run a volleyball tournament like we do, and you can play on Mondo. So we've got to come up with a service that we can continue to do that and still be able to rely on the bleachers, because we don't have an option now. I mean, it's a difficult situation and you have to really pay attention. So it's only 2 or 3 of us in the district that put them in and out. It's not every gym teacher has it. Derek doesn't want it that way. So, it's something we get by with, we have to deal with. But ultimately, the guy says that's got to come out.
So we're gonna work through those options and hopefully come up with some sort of solution to make it a little easier for Heavy and his crew. So, I think that really establishes, I know one of the other things that we've talked about with Brad is coming up with priority lists. And I know him and Dr. Kaler are working together to come up with some priorities so that we're gonna try and become more proactive as opposed to reactive. Because when you're reactive, you're spending more money than you need to be. And so between Heavy and Dr. Kaler, I think they're gonna try and work on some priority lists so we can just, every year start to chip away at those lists, because that list never seems to go away. It just keeps adding to the bottom. So that was another conversation we had. And then do you want to talk about that deed restriction now? Or is that down the road?
It is down.
Down the road, okay. So
I'll
there's,
just say real quick, wasn't there like a 2-3 bleacher issue? Is that being worked on?
How that one is.
I know that's not supposed like the rack, but I
Right.
just heard that there was an issue over there too.
Has had some issues with it. With several different things. And principal ones,
Yeah,
they use those in the
Yeah.
morning. And if you can't get them out, it causes chaos.
yeah,
We're not always there to put them in and out. It
Yeah.
could be a number of people. So he wanted them to fail out. Now, I know that affects
yeah,
a lot of people.
yeah,
But I'll have that crew come down and see if they can figure
Yeah.
anything out that can make them more consistent, more user-friendly for multiple.
yeah, Okay.
That's a bleacher system that most people should be able to put in.
right, okay. Thank
and
you.
then I'm sure he can call the manufacturer too and get it adjusted if need be,
Yeah,
They have to do so many yearly inspections on those things as they go
Right.
to.
thank you.
We move on. I did have a
Go
question.
ahead.
So I was reviewing the documents we were given at our meeting.
Mhm.
Are there supposed to be soccer lines on the football field?
No, the football field is not, from what I gather, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but the football field is not the right shape and size, or the track, excuse me. The track is not the right shape and size to have soccer.
Okay, well, because there's soccer lines.
But
on
they-
the-
Okay.
And they are.
They're
There are.
supposed
There
to be
are, okay,
Yes,
sorry.
there are. Yep, you're
But we
okay.
just can't
They
have
went back and
games on
forth on that
right?
discussion, so.
Okay, sorry.
yeah. No,
But they're
you're
not
perfect.
having games on that.
I think like on a homecoming.
There's a
Uh,
special
like a 5
event.
o'clock game.
See, the corner kicks then are standing on the track.
Right.
But that was the biggest issue, and that's why we went
Size.
kind of back and forth on that.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, that
Oh, you're
explains
welcome.
that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, building report wise? One more thing though, real quick is, we did review the snow, removal issue that came up last time, last month. And through Heavy and the contract, that company did meet and was utilizing the contract correctly. It was us that called them out multiple times that caused them to charge multiple times. So it is on us, it is on Brad, as the school district to call them when it's needed. And when you have such a blowing snow and a continuing snow, it's hard to judge when to call and when not to call. And so just know that, we've worked through that and, you know, continue to try and guess and estimate when to call and when not to call. So, Brad's doing a great job of keeping up on that as best he can, and with the equipment that he has that keeps failing, and so those are things that we've been talking about. But that being said, we're also going to go out for RFP, because it's been several years since we've done that for the snow removal process. So just know that'll be going out, and hopefully we'll get some interest in that and get some competitive bidding on that. With that,
Getting kind of, you know,
go ahead.
tail end of the conversation, but has there been any consideration of just hauling the snow off, get rid of it?
Well, they
instead of
push it where they
pushing in
can.
piles?
They push it where they can. It is hard to get rid of. You know, sometimes it can be quite a bit of snow, especially when you have an 8-inch snow like we did. So, you know, hauling it off costs a lot more money. So what we try to do is keep the cost down and just push it to the places where we can and keep it, you know, in specific areas. And they know where those areas are as they go through. They've pushed enough snow on the district to know how to, you know, carefully push it where they can to where it's not gonna impede the parking lot. But to haul it off, I think that would be an additional cost that I don't think the district would wanna to incur that.
What made it
I saw
difficult-
some trucks over here that I think would be capable of doing that.
Maybe.
What made it difficult was you used to be able to push it up against the NPR sidewalk right now. Or you could push it forward this way, now there's a driveway there.
Yeah.
You can't put it on the sidewalk in the rack, and so you have to get it out here. And if you pile it up around the pole like they do at malls and big parking lots, now you're taking up kids' assigned spots, like they park in or parking spot 110, if it's covered up, that bumps all these kids down the
Yeah.
line, gets to be a mess. We do haul it off, it's just, that's what we had to call them to help us do that, because our tractor broke. Really about every piece of equipment we had, if the snow was rough on it. We're looking into getting some other options with new equipment, handle what we're tasked. We used to do it all, we had a big truck, but we had a lot more buildings, a lot more parking. That made it where we just couldn't handle the equipment.
And we give a shout out to Rochester Township that helped out quite a bit too. So they always kind of jump in when we have an emergency too. So, but I think that's all I've got for that.
Thanks.
Moving on, we have the second reading of the press policy 117. Do I have a motion to approve the press policy?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, well, motion and second.
There we go.
Is there any discussions? Would you call the roll, please?
Dr. Graff,
Yes.
Mr. Farley,
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Childs,
Yes.
Mr. Hannah.
Yes. Next item is the discussion and possible approval of the cardiac emergency response plan, and that's an update by Mrs. Keller.
Thank you. So during the month of December, the cardiac emergency response plan was brought to the Board of Education. At that time, it had not been reviewed by legal counsel, and so I've had the opportunity to work with legal counsel at this time to get any recommendations from them. And just so there was one section that was added related to training and professional development. And so I want to make sure to reference that. It's the section titled Training in Cardiopulmonary Resuscitation and AED Use. There's a section titled underneath that, Staff Training, as well as Cardiac Emergency Response Drill. And so it lays out the requirements for training that our district needs to do across each building. And so, no, that's the only language that's been added, but I felt a responsibility to make sure to share that with you, of course, before you would take any action.
Any questions for Mrs. Keller? Okay.
I had a question, I
Please.
guess,
Mhm.
just from a staff perspective. I know, and we've talked about it tonight, just how much of a burden there is on staff time. There's already so much training. Obviously, I'm supportive of it. Any challenges from just an operational perspective with the training, the staff?
Sure, no, I appreciate you asking that. So, with that, one of the conversations I've been able to have with legal counsel just about staff training is what can that look like and what is acceptable as far as training goes, because we want to make sure we're meeting all requirements. And so some of that training can be done through our Global Compliance Network training, which is our online training. And there is other training that we're very fortunate with the staff that we have on hand, like our nurses, for example, that are able to provide training as well to our staff. Depending on what training is being done, of course, it can limit the numbers that you can participate in person at one time. And so that's something we continue to navigate even with AED training and CPR training. So that's a constant conversation each and every school year. So in addition to that, the cardiac emergency response drills, with that language, it points out that 2 successful drills have to be completed each year related to this specific topic, and that those drills and how things go, those also have to be documented. So that is something that we're continuing to have conversations about as far as what will that look like across each building, because we know that there are drills being done, and you've heard about that even this evening, that are done just beautifully. And so, you know, what can that look like in all buildings so we are prepared for anything? But again, you're right, 1,000,000%. And it's navigating that, continuing to have those conversations, making sure we are using all of our resources to provide training, and what are those training options that we really do have that menu of training options.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the cardiac emergency response plan?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, and unless there's any other discussions, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Carly,
Yes.
Dr. Graff,
Yes.
Mr. Childs,
Yes.
Mr. Hannah,
Yes.
Mr. Bailey.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to new business. We have a consideration and approval of Rochester CUSD 3A school district calendar for the 25-26 school year, presented by Mrs. Keller.
All right, so we have been working to update the 25-26 calendar for next school year that had been previously approved by the Board of Education to reflect several changes. One of those is that we always have one full day of parent-teacher conferences, and looking at next school year, that falls on October 14th. And then we also have our staff participate in evening conferences, like our high school is doing that this evening. And so with that, because of the time that our staff are working, they then get what I refer to as a trade day. So then they have a day off later in the school year because of the hours that they did work completing parent-teacher conferences. So no, that trade day, which we had to make an adjustment on our calendar, will be April 6th of 2026. Originally, it was on the calendar as a not in attendance day. It was labeled NIA. And so because they're going to earn that time, we needed to code that correctly, and that therefore it's changing to FPT, full parent teacher conference day, but no one will be in session that day because it is that trade day for the hours worked. That is reflected on April 6th. In addition to that, when we're looking at making any adjustments to our calendar, we have to be very careful about the days of attendance. So our student attendance days have to total 176 days, and our staff days are 180 days. So then we start counting because we want to make sure we're extremely accurate. With that adjustment, we had to move up. The last day of school is actually a day earlier. So originally it was listed as May 21st of 2026. It will be now May 20th of 2026. And then you have those 5 emergency days that are built into the calendar that follow after. And so originally our last emergency day was the 29th. That will now be the 28th. So it's a science. Looking at the calendars is a science, but those are adjustments that need to be made to make sure that we have the right dates as well with those small adjustments.
So
Yes,
April,
please.
so April 6th will be labeled as parent-teacher conference, but there,
FPT,
there
no
won't
one
be
will be
any.
here, correct. And that's how we have to code things all these little magical codes like XHS is a school improvement day where we get out early because of professional development. FPT, like there's a whole system through the State Board of Education that we have to utilize in order to code them. And no, if you would like any more information about how those are coded, I could provide that to you too. Again, it is a science, but we have to make sure we're meeting all requirements. And also, I don't want to make like the staff come in for 182 days and not get that right. That would be a problem. So that's why we're having to do switches. Thank you.
Any other questions on the revised calendar? Okay. Could I get a motion to approve the Rochester CUSD 3A School District Calendar 2025 to 2026 as revised?
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Carly,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Childs,
Yes.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Dr. Grant.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is a discussion and approval of Illinois Vision 2030. This is an adoption through IASB where they're, continuing to look at school districts and various ways that they can improve them. And we are on board with that. And so what I'm going to do is read the adoption. It's a little lengthy, so bear with me, and hopefully my voice holds out. So Illinois Vision 2030, whereas public education plays a defining role in ensuring equal opportunity for children in Illinois and throughout the United States, and whereas it is our collective duty to ensure that every student, regardless of demographic or geographic identity, has equal access to a quality public education, and we believe that whereas we believe that strides need to be, whereas, I'm not sure if there's something missing there, whereas there have been 3 areas of prioritization identified as integral in improving our public education system: future-focused learning, shared accountability, and predictable funding. And whereas future-focused learning should address promoting future-driven skills that allow for more college and career exploitation, enhancing student safety and well-being, attracting and retaining a high-quality and diverse educator pipeline, and promoting curriculum and instructional flexibility to meet the unique needs of local communities. And whereas shared accountability should address reforming the Illinois assessment system to be a timely and useful measure of student proficiency and growth over time, reforming the current accountability system to provide local flexibility for identifying sample resolution in support of Illinois Vision 2030. Please help fulfill the promise of public education in Illinois by placing the below resolution in support of Vision 2030 on an agenda for action at a public meeting of your Board of Education. Sample talking points, I don't think that's what I need to read. So, whereas predictable funding should address protecting the integrity and funding of the evidence-based funding formula, strengthening public education through pension reforms, and establishing equitable funding sources for capital and safety needs. And whereas it is imperative that any education improvement proposal for comprehensive change must be developed and supported by not only the education community, but in collaboration with families, communities, businesses, and others whose priorities reflect the best interest of the students. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Rochester Board of Education joins with Illinois Association of School Administrators, Illinois Association of School Boards, Illinois Principals Association, Illinois Association of School Business Officials, Illinois Association of Regional Superintendent of Schools, Superintendent's Commission for the Study of Demographics and Diversity, Illinois Alliance of Special Education Administrators, and the Association of Illinois Rural and Small Schools in supporting the Vision 2030 Education Improvement Policy. And be it further resolved that the Rochester Board of Education urges the Illinois General Assembly to approve the necessary legislative changes to implement the recommendations under the 3 pillars of education improvement as contained in the Vision 2030 policy. Okay, good job. That's it. So, Any questions on that? Do I have a motion to approve the adoption of the Illinois Vision 2030?
I'll make, you can add it. I'll second.
Any other discussions?
Is it something that you recommend?
Yeah, so it goes through all the different associations and they put together this plan that helps keep, administrators and school boards and principals and all the people associated with schools. It keeps it moving forward. It keeps progressing. Yeah, go ahead, Amy. Thank you.
We did this 10 years ago with the Vision 2020 and all those different groups collaborate to come up with things that can be changed and implemented to keep improving education. And the refunding at the state level for schools was uniquely tied to the Vision 2020. So it's those kinds of changes that end up coming about. So it's a renewal roughly every 10 years to kind of keep moving forward, making sure we're considering ideas for progress.
Answer your question? Okay, does that answer your question? Okay. Can we call the roll, please?
Mr. Childs.
Yes.
Mr. Carly.
Yes.
Dr. Graff.
Yes.
Mr. Bailey.
Yes.
Mr. Hannah.
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson.
Yes.
Next, we have the approval of vehicle fuel bids. I'll let Mrs. Keller touch base on that.
So each year, the district issues a request for proposal or RFP for fuel services. And the RFP was published in the State Journal Register on February 4th of 2025. The bid opening was scheduled for 10 a.m. on February 17th. And for the reference, you can see the recommended bid and RFP in your packets. There was one bid received by the district. And just so you're aware, it was from Prairie Land FS Incorporated. And the delivered price per gallon of gas is $2.52, but it says 2524. So,
Is it for gas and diesel?
yes, you got it.
Okay.
And that's all outlined in the packet too. So if you have any other questions, the bid is there.
Any questions? Can I get approval of the vehicle fuel bid?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Can we call the roll, please?
Mr. Bailey.
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Hannah.
Yes.
Mr. Childs.
Yes.
Dr. Graff.
Yes.
Mr. Carly.
Yes.
The next item is a discussion of consent to abrogation and release of deed restriction.
All right.
And I'll let you talk about it.
Sounds good. So, I want to start by sharing that we, as a district, have received information from the Rochester Fire Department. Two documents that you will find in your packet that are consent to abrogation and release of a deed restriction. And there are two documents, and then there's actually a map or aerial view, so you can see what that looks like. I have had the opportunity to speak with John Archer, who is the fire chief for Rochester, just to kind of get some history on what exactly and why we're being asked to sign off on what they're proposing. So with that, he was able to share with me that it was actually 23 years ago that there was property that the diocese, the Catholic diocese, had and sold to areas across from Cardinal Hill Road, across to Main Street. And with that, they put into place these agreements and deed restrictions related to not building a fire training structure on the property. And this was 23 years ago. So now, because we are a parcel in close proximity to their facility, they are looking to add a fire training structure there. And because of our proximity, they have to get us to sign off and approve to have them build the structure. So with that, he was kind enough to walk me through what they're looking at with the structure, because some of my questions related to, are we going to be burning anything? And yes, with a training facility, they would be looking to have pallets and things that would be lit on fire. They would also do smoke out situations. And of course, they need to be able to train and pull the hoses and the whole 9 yards. So They do regular training, I have learned, on Monday evenings, and they also do training on weekends. And so with that, it has been shared with me that they do not look to train when our students would be in session, because that was one of the questions I know I was thinking of, and like the air quality and our kids being in session while they might be training and burning something. So no, we did walk through that as well. The location of the training facility they're looking to build would be on the west side of their building. So I'm very visual. So my question was, if I'm standing at the intermediate school, what am I seeing when I'm looking at the fire station? So the thoughts were there that I probably may not even see it because it's going to be on the other side, near that line where the house is behind that. So so that kind of gives you a window in. It was shared with me that they have 12 different groups, individuals, entities that they have to look for approval for, just because of all this land that was sold by the diocese, and this was in all of those deeds, that they do have 7 of 12 that are, just to kind of keep you informed, 7 of 12 that have already been signed off on. So I know it's a lot to think about. No, if you're needing more information, that's something I can work to get more. So I don't know if you have specific questions that I haven't answered, but I know Dr. Graff has been a big help with this item as well, so. Sorry, I threw a lot at you.
Are we just gonna take their word for it that they're not going to burn at those time during school hours, or is there some legal thing that says we'll sign off on this if?
So know that, no, I have also been talking with our legal counsel in regards to this situation, and there's additional work that we could do there, even if you're wanting that. Like, we can ask for more specifics related to that, and if they have, like, is there anything in writing that they want to provide to us besides the documentation that we already have? Because I understand your concern, like, how are we making sure that this isn't going to happen, you know, during the school day?
And we asked that that be tabled for a while till we get more information on it.
Absolutely. And on the agenda tonight, Mr. Childs, there was no action associated with that, so it was really just a discussion, because I feel like we're just.
There's some people in the school district that are very concerned about fire
Sure.
protection. And these are folks have been retired, they've been at it, they
Yeah.
know their business real well.
Absolutely. So I think too, if you all have specific questions you want to make sure that I follow up on and get that information, I will do that for you. So you just let me know what you're needing, and then.
Okay, it's ironic, you know, that this sort of popped up out of the clear blue. It's not something you see or hear about. on a
Right,
daily
it was all
basis.
new to me.
We're just
I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot, so.
I know the questions that was brought up during our building committee meeting. And I know one of the questions was the air quality. Will it affect the building even when it's not occupied? You know, so if they're burning over the weekend and the intakes for the HVAC units on that building, pulling all that, you know, smoky air, is that something that is something we need to be aware of? And then, you know, I think that was really the only other question, other than will they be burning, and we've answered that, so. Is there any other question?
Do we have any inclination of why that stipulation was there in the first place?
So my understanding that there was a concern from the diocese that if they didn't put that in and a structure was built, then the other properties may not sell.
That,
So-
that was my understanding too, yeah.
Oh, good. I mean,
Yeah,
so
the
that was
property-
my,
That was my understanding.
that they wouldn't be able to sell the
Oh.
land. If they put that structure up, people may not buy next to that.
Yeah, or
Is-
just that it would affect the property values.
Do they need,
Absolutely.
my other question would be, do they need 100% of all 12 people?
I don't know that for sure.
I mean, can we just hold out to the end and see what happens?
Is there a backup spot they might utilize if they don't get permission, somewhere else to go to? Do they have a backup plan?
That's
I
the only
cannot-
property
I
they
cannot
own.
ask that
They don't
question.
own any other property. They sold the Berry property that they had. So the only property the fire department owns is right
Just
there
that
with the fire
corner.
station, yeah.
Well, if you think of any other questions, do let me know. I'll work to get that information for you, so. Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? Next item, discussion and approval of the General Education Advisory Council Constitution. Mrs. Keller.
Sure. Okay, so, as you all are aware, we have, it's a group, comprised of parents as well as administration that have been meeting called, Partners in Education, or PIE. And with that, the main focus that we have had currently is working to get the General Education Advisory Council back off the ground again. And with that, making sure that we clearly lay out the items that are in the Constitution that is being presented to you tonight. So with that, it maps out the purpose of the General Education Advisory Council. And I thought that would be important to really review with everyone, is that it is established to serve as an advisory body, providing recommendations to the district, to district school administration and the Board of Education on specific educational matters. And the council aims to assist in effectively communicating the district's goals and needs to the broader community while identifying and prioritizing areas of need within the district. And so to fulfill the promise, the council will focus on developing strategies to recruit a diverse group of families, determining an appropriate membership size, establishing service terms, and designing an optimal meeting schedule. Operating strictly in an advisory capacity, the council's recommendations will inform district leadership while ensuring the Board of Education retains full discretion to act independently. And then it goes into detail about Partners in Education, possibly an event that could be held. But we spent a lot of time just reviewing every section of this. So I'm extremely appreciative of everyone that played a role in getting this document to where it is today. Part of that is the membership. We have had ongoing conversations about the membership and the number of people to be involved, because it is, of course, a working group. With that, we are looking to have one staff representative from each of the school buildings. In addition to that, one family representative from each of the attendance centers as well. With that, we would have one district administrator, as well as a member of the Board of Education. And something that had not been done in the past is have a junior high and a senior high school student serve as members as well. And so with that, we have some work to do as far as putting out information regarding applying to be a part of the General Education Advisory Council. Excuse me. So what we will be working to do, if this Constitution would be approved, and this is outlined in the Constitution, is selection of members. So we have been working to draft a application for individuals who are interested in applying to be a part of this group that they would complete and submit. With those applications for staff members as well as family community members, those would then be selected at random. The student applications for our junior high and our high school students, those would then, when they submit their applications, those would go directly to those building administrators for selection. So the student process looks a little different than the remaining members would be. In addition to that, we really focused on, if somebody's interested in being a part of this, they of course have a vested interest in just really having an open mind and all of us collaborating together and having those very thoughtful conversations about future planning for the district and needs of the district. I did want to also point out that there would be officers with the General Education Advisory Council, and they would consist of a chairperson, a vice chairperson, as well as a secretary. And then we've outlined terms for the time that they would serve on the General Education Advisory Council. Also, attendance is a big one. So we would look for those people that are committed to being a part of this that if they have to miss a couple meetings, because we would meet once a quarter. So if someone's missing a couple meetings or missing half the meetings, so then we would look, to have someone else, step on to the council. And then for, chairpersons, they would serve a 2-year term, and, all other members would serve a 3-year term. However, there is language in the Constitution that reflects the fact when the applications are filled out, we are looking to identify what building someone's representing. So if we have someone that, let's say their youngest child is in 3rd grade and they're representative for the 2-3 building, but they have not served out their entire length of their council membership, then it may be that their council membership ends because their building's changing then. So those are things that we will continue to communicate. But I think that's a big thing. You're representing a building, and so that's going to shift, especially when you have those transition years to other buildings. So we will navigate that as well. With this Constitution too, it's unique because this group has created this. But with that, then the General Education Advisory Council, they will have the opportunity to amend this if they need to, because things will come up. Like, I think it's really great, the work that we've done, but once you're in it, something else might come up that we have not realized might be a situation. So that kind of gives you things. One other thing with the General Education Advisory Council is that we are required by law to have one open meeting during the school year. And we actually have had a lot of conversations about this group, and that we are looking to have all of the meetings be open. So no, that would also be different than how those meetings had been run in the past. Sorry, that was a lot.
No, you're fine.
If y'all have any questions
so-
about what's outlined, please go.
Excuse me. My first question would be, so you haven't set the members yet.
No, we have
You
not,
just use a group create.
to create this, so that we can do
How would
next
we,
steps.
I would want to make sure that we were transparent in how those people are selected.
So that they will be
Yeah.
randomly selected.
Okay.
So everyone will have the opportunity to apply, and then on the drafted application, so it's not finalized yet, but we're anticipating those that apply will have to indicate which buildings they are representing. So the likelihood is too, you may have someone that has multiple children in the district, and they will be representing 2-3, the intermediate school and the high school. Well, no, when that application comes in, then that person will be put in 3 different buildings that they could possibly be a member. So no, it's not that they would be singled out for one building. We would not make that decision. They would be in the running for each of those 3 buildings when those candidates are chosen randomly.
Can I just jump in? Cause I was a part of this, and I was a part of the old Gen Ed committee. And it sounds complicated. We put so much thought in talking about this, because the reason I came onto the old Gen Ed committee, which was like 2016, was because it was so unbalanced. It was a whole bunch of high school parents and me with a kindergartner. And then we had like nobody in between. And so that's why, I mean, we spent literally hours trying to figure out how do we make sure we have very equal representation so that all the buildings and all the ages, that's, like I said, kind of sounds, I don't think it's as complicated as it sounds when you explain it, but there was literally hours of discussion into how do we make sure we don't end up in that situation, because it was kind of weird that, to have a room of 8 or 10 high school parents and then one person with an elementary child, and then there was nobody, in between. And then we're trying to make decisions and talk about things that affected everybody. So that's why it kind of ended up looking like this, was we were trying to avoid that.
Any questions?
What if somebody from RES doesn't put in, like the family doesn't put in from RES?
Sure.
If
If-
seat's vacant or
So,
filled by
I'm
something?
so glad you brought that up. I should have mentioned it. So that was a discussion. So there is the possibility that could happen. And then what we are looking to do then is we would go to the building principal for recommendations at that point.
And that was the same with the staff representatives on there too. If nobody applied, that we could hopefully recruit somebody. And I think we also decided that like the staff for each building, it does not have to just be a teacher. If an admin wants to, if a secretary, a para, the school nurse, it's just someone that is working daily in that building. It's not limited to only a teacher.
Anybody else? So I will need a motion to approve the General Education Advisory Council Constitution.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussions? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Childs,
Yes.
Mr. Carly,
Yes.
Dr. Graff,
Yes.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Hannah.
Yes. Next on our list is first reading of Board Policy 7270, administering medicines to students. And I will turn this over to Mrs. Keller again.
Okay. So I know, Dr. Graff had mentioned earlier that during our policy committee meeting on February 11th, a portion of our time was dedicated to discussing, draft board policy 7270, administering medicine to students. Currently, our school district has implemented portions of this policy, and we are currently examining the section titled School District Supply of Undesignated Glucagon. The Wellness Committee has had the opportunity to review this draft policy as well as school code language and have identified the following areas of needed consideration and education of staff stakeholders. Excuse me, before I get into my list here. So I just really wanted to highlight some important pieces of this that I don't know that everyone necessarily has the background knowledge on. And this might lead to some questions you all may have as well, as this is just the first reading. But then, of course, you can keep that in mind as we work through this. So according to Illinois School Code, a school may maintain a supply of glucagon in any secure location that is immediately accessible to a school nurse or a delegated care aide. So it says undesignated glucagon, but again, not everyone can administer that to a student. So it has to be a school nurse or a delegated care aide who would be trained. A school, with that, they would have to be authorized to, and if the student's prescribed glucagon is not available on site or it has expired, undesignated glucagon must be maintained, of course, in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. So then something we've talked about too is just making sure controlled temperature is a big one, right? So that's something that we have spent some time discussing. In addition to that, a district that would look to implement this would have to find a provider. So a physician assistant who has prescriptive authority under section 7.5 of the Physician Assistant Practice Act of 1987, or an advanced practice registered nurse who has prescriptive authority under section 6540 of the Nurse Practice Act may prescribe undesignated glucagon in the name of the school to be maintained for use when necessary. Once that secure provider to write prescriptions and identify pharmacies, we would have to identify pharmacies that would be willing to fill the prescription. So those are a couple things we would have to work through. Who is going to prescribe and be willing to prescribe for the entire district? And then which pharmacy would be willing then to fill that? So those are things that we would just have to navigate. In addition to that, when looking at glucagon, it can be administered different ways. Nasal spray is an option for those over the age of 4. And if we were to, if you were to approve this after a second reading, no, that would be the recommendation for those that are older than 4. Those under the age of 4, the glucagon could be administered with a device like an EpiPen, which would be the recommendation and what we discussed with our wellness committee. There is the other option where you have your vial and you have your needle and you do all of the syringe, but that's not the option that we would recommend. It would be using the EpiPen-like device for those students that are under the age of 4. Just so you're aware, the prescription would need to be renewed every year. And then with that, our recommendation would be to include language in this policy for undesignated glucagon that would reflect the hours of the workday in which our staff and nurses are in attendance. So for example, we would be looking at, say, 7:30 to 3:15, and I'm just throwing that out there as an example right now, because the reality is you have to have a school nurse or a delegated care aide who has been trained, and so would be here during that school day. But again, that's language we would need to add into the press policy language that does exist. In addition to that, we have had discussions then, okay, what does that look like for our students that attend classes at CACC, Lincoln Land, or any other off-campus activities? So that's something, if we're saying it's here, then it's here. It's not that our nurses are traveling with them, or those delegated care aides. And then we also had a discussion, just because I want to make sure to bring it up, about after-school activities and athletics that are on and off campus, and that undesignated glucagon, with our recommendation during that school day, that would not apply to those activities outside of those hours. However, that's something we would navigate with someone's their medical management plans for our students, what that looks like. So that would be separate from the undesignated glucagon during the school day. Just so you kind of know, we had all those discussions related to our students. There is something I really wanted to highlight too. So when you are looking at the draft policy language, there is a void piece to it. So the school district's supply of undesignated glucagon section of the policy is void whenever the superintendent or designee is, for whatever reason, unable to obtain for the district the prescription for glucagon from a qualifying prescriber, or fill the district's prescription for undesignated school glucagon. For any reason, those two things, one or the other, or both, are not able to be fulfilled, then that voids the policy. So that's a lot, I know. The conversation around this has been extremely important. The questions that were posed during our wellness committee were wonderful. And I just appreciate the work our team has done to really walk through every avenue and piece of that, to be able to have that conversation with you tonight. And I know it's just first reading, but I felt like it was only fair to you all to have the information to help you as you're reading through that draft language, for us to come back together next month for that second reading and possible approval.
And our staff is on board.
So yeah, so we've had with the wellness committee, those individuals that are a part of that, absolutely. But again, with these things that I've laid out. So specifically, that timeframe piece is an important piece of that, so.
I was gonna
And
ask
making
that,
sure
yeah.
people are trained.
I was gonna ask that question if the wellness committee was recommending this. I know it's something that's been discussed and looked at for a while. I know there was some, there was a discussion about making sure that it was, kind of professionals looked at it and gave the recommendation. I appreciate that. The other was, concerns about legal liability for the school, and there was discussion with council. Have those issues been addressed to your satisfaction?
And so even, I have worked with legal counsel on this, and even having those conversations, say, as far as, can we limit it to the school day? Yes, we can. And
Okay.
that's language we can add. And so I've also walked through with legal counsel about the training piece. And, what does that look like? And is it sufficient enough for our, those delegated care aides, whoever they may be, to participate in? There's an online training option as well. So, yeah, we've navigated that. But no, too, if there are questions from anything that I've shared, or you need more information, I will get that. Please know that. So,
Thank you.
absolutely. Welcome.
Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Our last piece of new business is just a kind of more of an announcement. The IASB Abe Lincoln Regional Spring Dinner Meeting for board members is on March 6th. It's in New Berlin. And I believe it's at a new senior high school for them. So it could be pretty cool to go in and see their new school and then learn the roadmap for construction referendum and community involvement. So if you would like to join us on that, I think I'm gonna go. I think Amy, you're probably gonna be involved in that as well. Just let Carrie know and she'll get us signed up for that. Our next piece of business, is something that was requested that we do, to kind of switch things up with the way our meetings are held. Normally we would go into closed session, go through that whole deal and come back and add the miscellaneous items at the bottom. Well, we felt, and with guidance from the community, that that may be not as transparent as we want to be. And so what we're doing is, we're moving miscellaneous up in front of closed session. And so what that's going to do is allow us as board members to discuss any miscellaneous items that have not been brought up, that need to be addressed at this time. So I do know that Katie is going to talk about some CACC items. And then if anybody else has anything after that. After you.
Yes, so I got to go to a meeting yesterday at CACC, Board of Controls meeting where a representative from each school that has students participate goes. And some interesting information I found out about the programs at CACC. A lot of them are expanding, so much so that they had to add one or more instructors. And then this doesn't really have to do with the high school, but they do have an adult practical nursing program, and it is #1 in the United States. And a lot of those students were high school students that then move on to this program. And there's people that drive in every single day from over 75 miles away. So it's an excellent nursing program. They shared that over the summer they will be building a secure entrance. And they reminded these schools that they give out Student of the Month to CACC students, and that they should be recognized by their home school as well for that accomplishment. Their next meeting is June 17th at 6:30. And I was talking to the lady there from the Riverton Board of Education. She said that their board earlier in the week took a tour of CACC, so I would suggest maybe after the board elections, somebody get with a contact there and see if you can schedule a tour to see the awesome work that they're doing there.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other miscellaneous items at this time that anybody wants to bring up? Okay. Well, that being said, we're going to go into closed session. We'll enter into closed session, and I'll have to read the spiel. Is there a motion to enter a closed session for the purpose of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, and educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body, or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act. As well as collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees, the placement of individual students in special education programs, and other matters relating to individual students. That was a lot. A motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Could I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Carly,
Yes.
Mr. Hannah,
Yes.
Mr. Childs,
Yes.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Dr. Graff,
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson.
Yes.
As during closed session, thank you.